In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on current polling averages from every single state to see where Trump and Harris stand on the all-important path to 270 electoral votes. And we'll start off on the West Coast, first in Washington, where Kamala Harris leads by 13.8%, according to the 4 polls released over the last 2 months. This means that she is on track to underperform compared to Biden's 19-point margin from 2020. She is also expected to do worse in Oregon, where she leads by just 5%, according to the only poll we have between her and the former president from the state. And then in Kamala Harris's home state of California, 54 electoral votes, she leads by 24.5%. This is 5 points worse than Biden, and just another sign that she is not even close to being as strong of a nominee as the incumbent president was 4 years ago. Next up, in Nevada, we have a state that's going to be among the most competitive in the country, but that isn't going to make it that important. Both Harris and Trump have many pathways to 270 without the Silver State, simply because Nevada only has 6 electoral votes. And looking at polling there today, Kamala Harris leads by 0.5% in the polling average. Is this good for her? Probably not, because in the end, she is going to do worse than what the polls say. In 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to do much better than Hillary Clinton. Clinton won the Silver State by 2.4% in 2016. Biden was supposed to win Nevada by at least 5 to 7 points. In the end, he carried it by the exact same margin. Nevada is shifting to the right. In 2022, they elected a Republican governor, and Trump does have a very good chance at winning a state no Republican has won in 20 years. However, according to just the polling average alone, the state is going to be tilt blue on our map. Next up, in Arizona, we have another hyper-competitive state. If Trump can win Arizona, he's probably guaranteed to win in both North Carolina and Georgia, which means that all he'll need is just one more Rust Belt state. Winning Arizona will make getting to 270 a lot easier for the former president. And according to the current polling average, Donald Trump leads by 1.3% against Kamala Harris. In fact, he has led in 4 of the last 7 polls. Kamala Harris hasn't led in a poll in Arizona in over 3 weeks. And so the former president is in a very good position to take this state back, a state that he lost by a 0.3% margin in 2020. Joe Biden was supposed to win Arizona by 5 points at this point 4 years ago. Kamala Harris today isn't even leading in the polling average. If Kamala Harris can't even take the lead on Real Clear Politics, she has basically no chance at actually winning the state on November 5th. And so Arizona is also going to be tilt, but this time in favor of the GOP. Moving eastward to Colorado and New Mexico, we have our first ever poll from Colorado. This was conducted by Morning Consult, which is a very left-leaning pollster. Also, their sample size is only 498, which is a ridiculously small sample. They do their polls with Bloomberg normally, and those polls almost always are very skewed in favor of the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris leads by 15 points here. This is basically impossible. There's no way Kamala Harris is going to do better than Joe Biden in Colorado, because the incumbent president really did do well in the state in 2020. Hillary Clinton only won Colorado by 5 points in 2016. Barack Obama in 2008 won Colorado by 9 points, but Joe Biden was able to win it by nearly a solid margin. Kamala Harris is not going to win this state by more than 13 points, probably not even by more than 10. But right now, based on just that one faulty poll we have, it is going to be solid blue. While down in New Mexico, we have a polling average on RCP. Kamala Harris leads by 10%. She's ahead by 10, according to both of the most recent polls. She's not going to do this well, just like Joe Biden didn't do as well as the polls said he would in the state. He only won New Mexico by 11 points. Kamala Harris is very unlikely to do any better. She's probably going to win it by 7 or less. But again, just based on the numbers we have right now, New Mexico is going to be a likely blue state. And now, taking a look at these rural states in the middle of the country, we have a lot more polling in this region. First off, in Utah, Trump leads by 32 points. He is easily going to win the Beehive State for a third time in a row. In Montana, we have a very competitive Senate election between John Tester and Tim Sheehy. Tester is the incumbent Democrat running for a fourth term. He is probably going to lose his seat and hand Republicans the Senate majority, and Donald Trump is going to help Sheehy do that. Trump leads by 18 points in the state at the top of the ticket. The former president is going to carry Republicans to victory down ballot. We also have a poll from Nebraska, two polls actually, one showing Trump up by 17, one by 19 on average. He is on track to winning the state by 18 percentage points. This is the at-large vote, while in the 2nd congressional district, Kamala Harris leads by a 6% margin. Polling here has been very faulty in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump actually won it like he did in 2016. We'll just have to see. This district really does flip-flop quite a bit, but right now it is going to be lean blue. And then in Oklahoma, Donald Trump leads by 16 points. Now, all of the remaining states, they're all easily going to go to Trump. Idaho, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, the 1st and 3rd districts of Nebraska, and Kansas, all dark red. Before I continue, 85% of you guys are not subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and join my Discord server to chat with me personally, link in the description below. And to finish off the western half of the continental US, we have the Lone Star State of Texas, 40 electoral votes. It's a Republican stronghold that people thought could have been competitive in 2020. Obviously, that was not going to happen even just from the beginning. Trump was always going to dominate in Texas. We had some polls that showed Biden ahead. In fact, at some points throughout the 2020 cycle, Joe Biden was actually leading in the polling average. Today, that isn't even close to what's happening with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has been crushed in every single poll from Texas. Currently, Trump leads by 7.3%. He is easily going to cruise to victory. He's probably going to win the state by a double-digit margin, but right now, it is still going to be likely red nonetheless, with Trump on track to win by at least 7. And then in Alaska and Hawaii, we don't have any polls from Hawaii, but I wouldn't imagine Kamala Harris doing too well considering the Biden administration's handling of the Maui fires. I mean that comparatively, Democrats typically win the Aloha State by 30 plus points. Kamala Harris might win by 20 to 25, but it's still going to be solid blue. While in Alaska, we do have two polls, and Trump leads on average by 7.5%. Polling in Alaska isn't always that great, and generally, yes, the state is shifting to the left, but there's no chance that Kamala Harris is going to be competitive here. It will still be a Trump state, and in the end, he's probably going to win it by 10 points or more. Moving on now up to the Midwest, this is going to be a hugely consequential region. Kamala Harris has to win Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania if she wants to have any chance at getting to 270 electoral votes, especially without Arizona. Kamala Harris must win a majority of the 8 Midwestern states if she wants to become the 47th president. And so we're going to start off in Minnesota. This is Governor Tim Walz's home state. That's the only reason why Kamala Harris is currently on track to win. If Joe Biden hadn't dropped out of the election, Donald Trump would probably be the favorite in Minnesota right now. If Kamala Harris hadn't chosen Tim Walz, this would be a pure toss-up. But she did choose the state's governor, and as a result, she leads by 5.4% in the polling, which isn't even that good. I mean, just look at 2020. Even Joe Biden won Minnesota by 7 points, and he was not running with the state's literal governor. So Minnesota is going to be lean blue for Kamala Harris, but this is a pretty weak showing. If you watched the recent debate, then you'll know that the bias from the moderators is yet another example of the media environment contributing to division and making it hard for people to think for themselves. That's why I use Ground News, a website and app that gathers news from 50,000 sources around the world, so you can stay fully informed and see through media manipulation. Check it out for yourself at ground.news/election time. We can see here that there are over 600 articles on a recent story asking who won the Harris-Trump presidential debate. If we look at the coverage details and bias distribution, we can see which news sources cover this story, along with a breakdown of the political leaning of the outlets reporting. 41% of them lean left, while 22% lean right. If we want to compare headlines, we can see an outlet on the left reporting Harris won the debate, and it wasn't even close, while this headline from an outlet that leans right calls out the biased moderators from ABC. With an intense election upon us, I highly recommend Ground News. Just go to ground.news/election time, click the link in the description, or scan the QR code. Using my link gets you 40% off the Vantage plan, the same plan I use for unlimited access to all their features. Next up, in Iowa, Donald Trump is being underestimated here once again. According to the only poll we have from the Des Moines Register, Trump leads by 4%. Yes, he's on track to win. Nobody thinks that Kamala Harris is going to get even close to Trump in Iowa, but just look at what happened in 2020. Trump was supposed to win Iowa by 1.3%. He eventually won the state by 8 times that margin, defeating Biden by 8.2. And today, this poll that shows Trump up by 4, it is going to be completely wrong. He's going to win the state by at least 7 to 10 points. So on our map, Iowa is going to be leaned red, but in the end, we all know he is going to do much, much better. Moving on to Wisconsin, this is going to be a very important state for Kamala Harris. If Wisconsin goes, the election goes. Wisconsin generally is the most conservative out of the 3 blue wall states. You could put Minnesota in there too, but this time around, Kamala Harris is going to do better than she typically would without Tim Walz on the ballot. And that is why Pennsylvania currently is seen as the most conservative. And so looking at the polling in Wisconsin today, Kamala Harris leads by 1.2%. But is this enough? Probably not. In 2020, polls said Joe Biden was going to win Wisconsin by 7 to 8 points. He eventually won the state by 0.63. In fact, Donald Trump did better in Wisconsin in 2016 than Biden did in the last election. So if you just go by the last 2 elections, Trump should be on track to win, especially against Kamala Harris, who is a weaker candidate than Joe Biden, and arguably even compared to Hillary Clinton. And so the state is going to be tilt blue, but based on Wisconsin's history of overestimating Democrats in the polls, it is definitely not enough. Meanwhile, in Illinois, Kamala Harris leads by 16 points, while in Indiana, Trump leads by 17. So we have 1 blue state and 1 red state. Up in Michigan, the former president is also slightly behind, just like in Wisconsin. Kamala Harris leads by 0.4%. This is just what the polls are telling us. But is this good enough for her? Probably not. In 2016, at this point in the election season, in late September, Hillary Clinton was leading by 5.2%. Joe Biden was leading by 6.8%. And now we have Kamala Harris. She leads by 0.4. She is barely ahead. If you go back and look at polls from 4 and 8 years ago, you see basically a sea of blue. Today, you don't get that at all. You have a lot of tied polls, a lot of polls where Trump is actually winning. And so at this point, I would still expect the former president to carry both Wisconsin and Michigan. But based on just the raw polling data alone, Democrats are ahead by the smallest margin possible. Next up, in Ohio, we have a state that votes very closely to Iowa, but we do have a polling average here. We have some more polling data. Trump leads by 9% in the Buckeye State. There's no doubt he is going to win it for a 3rd time in a row, just like he is going to win Iowa for a 3rd time, and he's probably going to win both of these states by around a 10-point margin, no matter what those Iowa polls are telling you. And then now to finish off the Midwest, remember, Kamala Harris has to win Pennsylvania if she wants to have a chance, and unfortunately for her, she is behind in the Keystone State. According to the polling average, Donald Trump leads by 0.2%, and once again, is this good enough? It probably is. Hillary Clinton led by 6 points at this point, Joe Biden by 4. In the end, Joe Biden was supposed to win the Keystone State by 5 to 6%. He eventually won it by just over 1. And so yes, Biden did do well in the last election, but he ran under very favorable circumstances for the Democrats. We had a year-long pandemic before the election. The economy wasn't doing too well as a result. And even in those circumstances, Joe Biden barely won the 2020 election. If he didn't win Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona, 3 states, all decided by less than 0.7%. If those states had gone to Trump, Trump would have been reelected. And now against Kamala Harris doesn't have any of those favorable environmental factors that Biden did 4 years ago, and that is why she is currently on track to lose, with Pennsylvania being a tilt red state. Moving up now to the Northeast, we have a lot more polling than we did before. Even from these safe blue states, we're going to begin in the Empire State of New York, where Kamala Harris leads by 14%. This is going to be the weakest performance for a Democrat in the state since 1988. Every single Democrat since then has won New York by at least 15 points. And then up in Vermont, Kamala Harris leads by 41%. This is pretty expected. Vermont is the most liberal state in the entire country. While in New Hampshire, this is a state that was close in 2016. Hillary Clinton won it by less than half a percentage point. Joe Biden did do much better in 2020, but today Kamala Harris leads by just 6 percentage points. This state can definitely get more competitive because when Joe Biden won New Hampshire by 7 points, he was on track to winning it by nearly 10. And so the Granite State is going to be lean blue on our map, but it's definitely one to watch. Moving up to Maine, this is where I think polling really will be the most inaccurate on the entire map. In the state as a whole, Kamala Harris is on track to win by 13 points. That simply isn't going to happen. Even Joe Biden only won Maine by 9%. In the first district, Harris is supposed to win by 25. That is just way too high. In the second district, we actually have a tie, but since Trump leads in 2 out of the 3 polls conducted, we're going to give him a narrow victory, but he is going to win the state by at least 7 points. I mean, even in 2020 against Joe Biden, he won the state by 7 points. There's no way Kamala Harris is even going to come close to flipping that second district of Maine. So the second district right now, just based on polling alone, is going to be tilt red, but that's going to be wrong. The first district will be solid blue, and the state as a whole will be likely. And then in the remaining northeastern states, we do actually have a lot more data than we have before. In Massachusetts, Harris leads by 31 points. The vice president is ahead in Rhode Island by 20, and in Maryland, Kamala Harris leads by 28 points. So these 3 states are going to be a solid blue, along with Rhode Island and the District of Columbia, while both New Jersey and Delaware will be likely for the Democrats. And then in the Southeast, this is where Trump really dominates, and we're going to start off with these states where we do have polling. First off, in Missouri, where Trump leads by 12.8%. He leads by 15 in Arkansas, by 26 in Tennessee, and by 27 in West Virginia. So Missouri is going to be likely red, while Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and South Carolina all deep red. Virginia, though, is going to be noticeably more competitive and probably the only state left for Harris on this map. She leads by 5.3% in the polling average. This isn't too terrible, but honestly, considering the fact that Joe Biden won this state by a double-digit margin in the last election, Harris's 5-point lead is not impressive at all, especially considering that this state has been shifting to the right. She really could be in trouble here. I have Virginia as among the most competitive states in the entire country. This is definitely going to be one to watch, and on our map, it is going to be lean blue. In neighboring North Carolina, out of all 7 of the swing states, the so-called swing states are, of course, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and the 3 blue wall states. North Carolina is the only one that went to Trump in both 2016 and 2020. In 2016, Trump won every single battleground that we know today, except for Nevada. In 2020, he lost every single one of them, except for North Carolina. And this time around, he is on track already to take back at least Pennsylvania and Arizona, but he's now also on track to hold onto the Tar Heel state of North Carolina, where he leads by 0.4%. In fact, Trump has led in 6 of the last 8 polls conducted here. There's no doubt North Carolina will remain red, and it will be a tilt red state, the 3rd one on the map. And then down in Georgia, the Peach States' 16 electoral votes are also on track to flip back in favor of Trump. If he can win Arizona, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, there's no doubt he is going to win Georgia as well. This is a state he carried by 5 points in 2016. Georgia is still fundamentally a lot more conservative than it is liberal, and considering Biden's weak margin of victory in 2020, Kamala Harris is very unlikely to replicate the incumbent president's success there from 4 years ago. So Georgia is going to be tilt red on our map, as Trump does lead by a narrow margin, and he leads in all 3 of the most recent polls conducted here. And then finally, in the Sunshine State of Florida, this is the last state we're going to fill in on the map. 30 electoral votes. They're basically free at this point for the GOP, as Florida is no longer competitive, not even close to where it was even just 4 years ago when it was still considered a top-tier battleground. Today, Florida is no longer on the list of competitive states. Trump leads by 6%. In the end, he's probably going to win by at least 7 to 10. That's what would happen if polls underestimate him, just like they did in 2020. Biden was supposed to win Florida by around 2 to 3 points. He eventually lost it by that margin, and so Florida will be lean red on our map, but in the end, it's going to be at least a likely GOP state. And so based on current polling averages from every single state. Donald Trump remains the favorite to take back the presidency. He's on track to win 281 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 257, but I do expect the polling to once again underestimate Trump, and I think he has a very, very good shot and is still the favorite in Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and follow me on Twitter for daily political updates. Link in the description below.